students. Today we are going to see the next part of the skeletal connective tissue, that is bone. In the earlier video we have completed the cartilage and its type. Now in this video we are going to see the characteristics of the bone, composition of it and its function. First of all, we should know what is bone. Bone is actually the hardest living tissue of our body, which is non-flexible. We cannot bend the bone, and it gives the main structure of the body. It is the chief component of the endoskeleton. So we are going to have 206 bones. So this all bones, they actually are the one type of skeletal connective tissue. So let us see what is the composition of bone. Bone, basically we should know, it is the hardest living tissue of our body. See, if it comes in your exam, what is the hardest component of our body, then it will be the enamel, which is the lining of our teeth. So that is the hardest non-living thing. But if it is the hardest living component, then it will be the bone. Second characteristics, we should know that this bone is non-flexible structure and it forms our endoskeleton. Okay, very much important thing that in case of the bones, these bones are going to have 70% of the constituents. That constituents are non-living. 70% constituents of bones, they are non-living matter. That means it is the mineral matter actually, and only the 30% constituents that are the organic matter. Okay, and non-living matter means it is the inorganic, and it is the mineral components. Okay, very much important thing about the bone. Next one, we should know, we already know about that we are going to have 206 bones. But yes, we need to know a very important thing, that in case of the infants, they have more bones than the adults. Yes, we are the adults, we have 206 bones. But whenever a baby borns, at that time, they have more bones than 206 bones. Later on, these bones actually fuse and form only one bone. We should know what is the longest bone. The longest bone is the femur, right? Femur means our thigh bone. This is the longest bone. And what is the smallest? Smallest bone is the stapes. Stapes means it is actually present in the middle ear, and in the middle ear we have three bones: what are they? Malleus, incus and stapes. And the stapes, the third ear ossicle, is the smallest bone, right? Remember that this is also important point. Now come to the next point, that in case of the bones, how actually we will see the structure. First of all, if it comes to a bone, then we generally think that this bone is a long part, long structure, and it is going to have different parts. Inside the bone, we have a cavity, and that is filled with marrow. So we have a bone marrow. But yes, we need to know two very important things, that depending upon treatment, we are going to have two type of bone. One is dry bone and another is known as decalcified bone. So first of all, we will see the treatment, that if we treat a bone with hydrochloric acid, what will happen? So first of all, a bone is treated with hydrochloric acid, then that bone is known as decalcified decalcified bone. That means whenever that bone is treated with strong acid, then what will happen? That calcium component, we should know that bone is the reservoir of calcium. Okay, so it is the reservoir of calcium. Okay, and chiefly two type of salts are present. What are they? One is the calcium phosphate and second one is the calcium carbonate. Okay, so there are two salts present, calcium phosphate and calcium carbonate. They are chiefly present. Now whenever a bone is treated with hydrochloric acid, then the calcium part that will be shed, it will be not present. Okay, so whenever this calcium part will be removed, then what will happen? This bone become flexible. Okay, because this calcium ion makes this bone more harder, isn't that? If this calcium will be removed during the treatment of hydrochloric acid, then it becomes flexible. Okay, remember that it becomes flexible. That will be known as decalcified bone. But whenever this bone is treated with, suppose, a strong base like potassium hydroxide, then what will happen? The bone will not undergoing any change. But whenever this bone is treated with hydrochloric acid, that bone will be known as decalcified bone, where the calcium will be removed, due to what the bone become flexible, right? Otherwise, the another living components like the cells, the bone marrow, that will be intact, right? Now, the bone, if it is treated in high temperature, okay, suppose a bone is subjected to high temperature, then this bone will be known as dried bone. Okay, so that bone will be known as dried bone, and in case of dried bone, you will not able to find the organic compounds and the living cells. The living cells, the different systems we have, like Haversian system, Walkman canal, all of those parts, those components, that will completely get burnt, and only the inorganic material, the mineral component will be present. Even the bone marrow, that will be also removed. Okay, so that are the two differences, that is decalcified and dried bone. So we have to know the differences between decalcified and dried bone. If it is decalcified bone, then all the living components, that the cells and the bone marrow, that will be intact, right? Only the calcium is removed and it becomes flexible. If it comes to the dried bone will have only the inorganic materials, like only the minerals will be there, but the bone marrow and the living cells, osteocytes, that will be no more present. Okay, even the bone marrow, that will be emptied, and bone cavity, marrow cavity will be there. Okay, so that are the differences between decalcified bone and the dried bone. Now, after that, let us see the structure of a bone. So, if you see a structure, how it look like, then we have a prior idea how actually bone look like, isn't that? So, suppose this is the bone. Okay, so this is the bone. This bone will have two parts, right? What are the two parts? First part, this part is the end part, and this is the long part, right? Okay, so this ends, the head, that will be known as epiphysis, and this long part of the bone, that is known as diaphysis. Right? Now this bone is also divided into two types. What are they? One, this part, in this epiphysis region, we are going to have the sponsy part. So this is known as the sponsy bone, right? And this shaft region, this diaphysis region, that part will be known as the compact bone. Okay, remember one thing, that in the spongy bone region we are going to have the trabecules. What are the trabecules? I will going to give you, but actually here the marrow, that will be red bone marrow. Okay, so in this epiphysis region we are going to have the red bone marrow. Okay, where actually all the living all the cells, blood cells, RBC, WBCs, they have been formed inside the red bone marrow, where only the ends, the epiphysis of a bone, will produce the red bone marrow part. Now red bone marrow will form the RBC, WBC, the cells. Now the next one, that here we will have a cavity. So what is that cavity? This is also a marrow cavity, but this cavity will be known as yellow bone marrow. Okay. Now, what is the function of yellow bone marrow? That it is going to store only the fat. So that's why we are going to see only the adipose site, adipose tissue, where it is going to store the store basically the fat part. So it appears yellow in color, right? And here this is the red bone marrow on only the epiphysis region. Remember, in a bone the ends will be known as epiphysis. This ends will be known as epiphysis, and this long shaft part will be known as diaphysis. So that diaphysis region will be known as the compact bone, and this epiphysis region, that will be known as the spongy bone. In this spongy bone region, or that epiphysis, will have a cavity, and that cavity will be known as the red bone marrow, where the RBC, WBCs will be formed. And in this diaphysis region, compact bone, this bone marrow will be known as the yellow bone marrow, which is going to store the fat. So that's why adipose tissue will be found. Now this is the structure. In this bone we are going to have also this lining. Suppose this is the yellow bone marrow, right? Now just see this outer lining of the bone, that will be known as the periosteum, right? And this one, the inner side, which is the lining of the yellow bone marrow, that will be known as endosteum. Okay, periosteum is the outer lining of a bone, and inner lining, that is the marrow lining, yellow bone marrow lining, will be also going to have another lining, and that one will be known as endosteum, right? So these 2 points will be also very much important. Now, one thing we need to know about the bone, that in case of the bone, we are going to see the protein. What is the protein? Protein ossein. Ossein protein is generally found. Along with that, collagen protein will be also present, right? So collagen protein will be also present in case of the bones. Now the next thing, that if it comes to the fibers, okay, then yes, we are going to have this white fiber, but this white fibers will be indistinct. We cannot see, actually we cannot term that yes, here this white fiber is present. We cannot distinguish it. It is present, but it is indistinguishable. Next one, here this matrix, right? So this matrix will be very much dense. Okay, so this is dense and it is non-flexible. Why? Due to the deposition of the salts. What are the salts? Calcium carbonate and calcium phosphate. So remember also one point, that this bone is actually the reservoir of the salts. They are calcium and phosphate. Very much important point. Next thing about the cells. Okay, how many cells are present here? You can see in this bone, basically one that cell is osteoblast, osteocyte and osteoclast. Okay, so these three type of cells are present. One thing we should know about it, that in case of osteoblast, it is the mother cell which is going to produce the bone matrix, as well as it is also forming the osteocyte, right? Next one, osteocytes. This osteocytes will be the normal constituent of a bone that will be performing the normal function of a bone. Next one, osteoclast cell. Osteoclast cell is actually the destroying cell. If suppose the osteocytes, they die, then that died osteocytes will be engulfed by the osteoclast cell, right? So this three type of cell will be present in the bone. Next one, if it comes to the growth, right? So if it comes to the growth, then it is bidirectional. Okay, so this is one difference with the cartilage, that the cartilage growth is unidirectional. That means if this is the cartilage, in only one direction it can grow, in this direction it cannot grow. But if it comes to the bone, then from this region and from this region, from both these two regions, the bone can grow. And in which region the bone can grow actually? That will be this region. So here this is the region where actually the bone can grow, in between the epiphysis and diaphysis. So that is about just the general characteristics. In next video, I will tell you in detail the two types of connective tissue, two type of bones, that are the compact and the spongy. In that compact and the spongy, I will tell you the different characteristics, how actually the cells and fibers will be present. So that's all about the bone. Hope you have understood. This is just the general characteristics. In the next video, we will see the type of bone. Thank you.